I should have known something was off when I found myself humming while stuck in Boston traffic at 5:30 on a Tuesday. Tom Halley doesn't hum. Tom Halley curses at red lights, argues with talk radio hosts, and generally treats his daily commute like a personal vendetta against the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. But there I was, drumming my grease-stained fingers on the steering wheel of my beat-up Ford pickup, grinning like an idiot. The reason sat in my jacket pocket like a winning lottery ticket. Which, in a way, it was. 3 months ago, I'd made what Melissa called another one of your stupid investments in a tech startup run by some kid who looked like he should be asking if I wanted fries with that. The company made some kind of software for auto repair shops, diagnostic stuff that was way over my head. But I knew cars, and I knew the software worked. So when Jimmy Kowalski from the garage down the street mentioned they were looking for investors, I scraped together 25 grand from our savings. Melissa had been furious. "We need that money for Sarah's college fund," she'd said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Not for some fantasy about getting rich quick." The irony wasn't lost on me. My wife, who spent more on handbags than most people made in a month, lecturing me about financial responsibility. But I'd signed the papers anyway, partly because I believed in the product, mostly because I was tired of asking permission to take risks with my own money. Today, that risk paid off. Big time. Autotech Solutions had been acquired by a major corporation for $42 million. My modest investment had multiplied by a factor of 34. I was walking away with $850,000. After taxes, I'd still have enough to pay off the house, put Sarah through any college she wanted, and maybe finally take that trip to Ireland Melissa had been talking about since we got married 19 years ago. I pulled into our driveway in Southie, noting that Melissa's BMW was already there. Perfect. I wanted to see her face when I told her. Maybe she'd finally admit that her blue-collar husband wasn't as stupid as she thought. The house looked good in the late afternoon sun. We'd bought it 12 years ago when my auto repair business started turning a real profit. Nothing fancy, but solid. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a decent backyard for Sarah to play in when she was little. The mortgage had 7 years left on it, had being the operative phrase. I grabbed the contract paperwork from the passenger seat and headed for the front door. Through the window, I could see Melissa pacing in the living room, phone pressed to her ear. She was wearing her power suit, navy blue with a white blouse, the outfit she wore when she wanted to intimidate someone, probably tearing some poor client a new one. Melissa worked in public relations for a tech company downtown, and she was good at it. Maybe too good. The front door was unlocked. I pushed it open quietly, not wanting to interrupt her call, but eager to share the news. The paperwork crinkled in my hands as I stepped into the foyer. "I know it's been difficult," Melissa was saying, her back to me, "but tonight's the night. I'm going to tell him." "Tell me what?" I froze, one foot still on the doormat. "Devin, sweetheart, I can't keep living this lie." Her voice was softer now, intimate in a way I hadn't heard directed at me in months. "Tom's a good man, but he's not you. He doesn't understand ambition. He's content fixing cars and drinking beer with his loser friends." The paperwork slipped from my numb fingers, scattering across the hardwood floor. The sound made Melissa spin around, her face going white when she saw me standing there. "I have to go," she said quickly into the phone. "We'll talk later." She hung up and smoothed her skirt, trying to regain her composure. But I'd seen the panic in her eyes, the guilty flush creeping up her neck. "Tom," she said carefully, "you're home early." Not early enough, apparently. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, like it was coming from somewhere far away. "Who's Devin?" She opened her mouth, closed it, then seemed to make a decision. Her shoulders straightened, and when she looked at me again, there was no apology in her eyes. Just cold determination. "We need to talk," she said. "Yeah, I'll bet we do." I bent down to gather the scattered papers, my hands shaking slightly. "Funny thing, Melissa, I came home to celebrate, to share some really good news with my wife." Tom, $850,000. I stood up, clutching the contract. That stupid investment you were so pissed about, it just made us rich. For a moment, her mask slipped. I saw surprise, then something that might have been regret. But it was gone quickly, replaced by that familiar look of patient condescension. I'm glad for you, she said. Really. But that doesn't change anything. She walked to the coffee table and picked up a manila envelope I hadn't noticed before. My name was written on it in her precise handwriting. I was going to wait until after dinner, she said, holding out the envelope. But maybe this is better, cleaner. I didn't take it. What is it? Divorce papers. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually took a step backward. I've been thinking about this for months, she continued, her voice steady and professional, like she was delivering a presentation to a client. We want different things, Tom. We always have. I need someone who shares my ambitions, who understands what I'm trying to build. Someone like Devon? She didn't deny it. Yes, like Devon. I stared at her, this woman I'd loved for 2 decades, and felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. How long? Does it matter? It matters to me. She sighed. 6 months. 6 months. I thought about all the late nights she'd blamed on work, all the business trips, all the times she'd been too tired or too stressed for conversation, for intimacy, for anything that resembled a marriage. I'm sorry, she said, and for the first time, she sounded like she meant it. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did it anyway. I fell in love, Tom. It happens. I looked down at the contract in my hands, then at the divorce papers she was still holding out like some kind of peace offering. The irony was so perfect, it was almost funny. Almost. Keep the money, she said quietly. I don't want anything from you. I just want out. That's when I started laughing. Not the bitter, angry laugh you might expect, but genuine amusement. Because in that moment I realized something important. Melissa had just made the biggest mistake of her life. What's so funny? She asked, uncertainty creeping into her voice for the first time. I took the envelope from her hands and tucked it under my arm with the contract. Nothing, sweetheart. Just thinking about timing. She frowned, but I was already heading for the stairs. Where are you going? To pack a bag, I called back. Seems like I've got some celebrating to do, just not with you. As I climbed the stairs, I could hear her calling after me, asking what I meant, demanding explanations I had no intention of giving. But I was already thinking ahead, my mind spinning with possibilities. Melissa wanted a divorce? Fine. She could have one. But she was about to learn that underestimating Tom Halley was a very expensive mistake. The game was just beginning. I spent that first night at Joey's place above his boxing gym. Joey Stonebridge had been my friend since high school, back when we were both stupid enough to think we could make it as fighters. He'd lasted longer than me, made it all the way to the New England Golden Gloves before a detached retina ended his dreams. Now he trained kids and ran the gym like a combination therapist's office and boot camp. So let me get this straight, Joey said, pouring 2 fingers of bourbon into a coffee mug. Same day you become a millionaire, your wife serves you divorce papers because she's screwing some guy named Devon. That's about the size of it. I accepted the mug gratefully. The bourbon burned, but it was a good burn. And you're taking this awfully well. Am I? Joey studied my face in the dim light of his apartment. The place was spartanly furnished. A couch, a TV, a kitchen table covered with gym paperwork. Pictures of fighters covered the walls, most of them kids Joey had trained over the years. You're planning something, he said finally. Maybe. Tom, whatever you're thinking, don't do anything stupid. I took another sip of bourbon. Stupid's for amateurs, Joey. I'm going pro. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Bill Morrison. Bill had handled the purchase of my garage and our house, along with various business matters over the years. He was honest, thorough, and expensive enough that I knew he was good at his job. "Divorce, huh?" Bill said when I explained the situation. "I'm sorry to hear that, Tom. Melissa seemed like a nice woman." "Yeah, well, appearances can be deceiving." "They usually are. What do you want to do about the settlement?" That's where it gets interesting. I told him about the Autotech windfall, about Melissa's affair, about her generous offer to let me keep all the money. Bill was quiet for a long moment. "Tom, I have to ask, did you record that conversation?" "No, should I have?" "Massachusetts is a two-party consent state, so it wouldn't be admissible anyway. But the timing is unusual. She serves you papers the same day you come into money she doesn't know about?" "That's what I was thinking. We need to be very careful here. If she finds out about the windfall before the divorce is final, she could claim you concealed assets. That would complicate things significantly." "What if she already knows?" "Does she?" I thought about the phone call I'd overheard, about the way she'd looked when I mentioned the money. "I don't think so, but I'm not sure." "Then we proceed carefully. File the response, agree to her terms for now, but we do our due diligence. If she's been having an affair, there might be other things she's hiding too." That afternoon, I drove to Sarah's school to pick her up. My daughter was 16, all legs and attitude and her mother's sharp intelligence. She'd been texting me since the previous night, asking where I was, why Mom was crying, what was going on. She climbed into the truck wearing her field hockey uniform and the expression of someone who'd been kept in the dark long enough. "Dad, what the hell is happening?" "Language. Don't change the subject. Mom said you guys are getting divorced. Is that true?" I pulled out of the school parking lot, buying time. How do you explain to your daughter that her mother is cheating without destroying her relationship with Melissa forever? "It's complicated, kiddo. I'm 16, not 6. I can handle complicated. Your mom and I want different things. Sometimes that happens." Sarah was quiet for several blocks. Then, "Is there someone else?" "Smart kid. Too smart." "Why would you ask that?" "Because Mom's been acting weird for months, always on her phone, always working late, and she's been buying new clothes, doing her hair different. Classic cheating wife behavior." I nearly drove off the road. "Where did you learn about classic cheating wife behavior?" "Netflix. Also, Mom's not as sneaky as she thinks. I saw the texts." Now I did pull over, into the parking lot of a Dunkin' Donuts. "What texts?" Sarah pulled out her phone. She left her laptop open last week. The messages were syncing. She showed me the screen, and my heart sank. The messages were from someone listed as D in her contacts. They were explicit, romantic, and left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Worse, they went back 8 months, not 6, like Melissa had claimed. "Dad, I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner." "No, sweetheart. This isn't your fault." I handed her phone back, my mind racing. "Can you forward those to me?" "Already did. Last week." "Why?" She shrugged, suddenly looking much younger than 16. "I figured you'd need them eventually." That evening, I met with Bill again, this time with Sarah's evidence. He reviewed the messages carefully, making notes. "This changes things," he said. "Adultery isn't grounds for a bigger settlement in Massachusetts, but it does establish a pattern of deception, and some of these messages reference financial matters." He was right. In several texts, Devin had mentioned our account and the investment opportunity. Melissa had responded with details about our financial situation, including information about my business that she had no right to share. "Bill, I want you to hire a private investigator." "Tom, not to catch them in bed. I don't need that kind of evidence, but I want to know who this Devin guy is, what he does for a living, and whether my wife has been sharing more than just pillow talk." Bill nodded slowly. "I know someone. Discreet, thorough, but this is going to get expensive. I can afford it." 2 weeks later, I had my answer. Devin Pierce was 33 years old, CEO of a startup called Pierce Financial Solutions. The company provided wealth management services to tech workers and entrepreneurs. He was handsome in that generic way that screamed expensive personal trainer and regular Botox appointments. He drove a Tesla, lived in a downtown penthouse, and according to his social media, had never met a networking event he didn't love. More interesting was what the investigator found in public records. Pierce Financial had been incorporated 8 months ago, right around the time Devin and Melissa started their affair. The company had 3 clients listed in its initial filing. One of them was Autotech Solutions. I stared at the report for a long time, pieces clicking into place. Devin hadn't just stolen my wife. He'd used her to get information about my investment, then positioned himself to profit from the acquisition. The question was, how much did Melissa know? I was about to find out. The text came on a Thursday morning while I was replacing the transmission on a 2018 Honda Civic. My hands were covered in grease, so I almost ignored the phone buzzing in my pocket. But something made me wipe my hands and check. It was from Melissa. "We need to talk urgently. Can you meet me tonight?" I stared at the message, my pulse quickening. It had been exactly 1 month since she'd served me divorce papers. In that time, we'd communicated only through lawyers and brief exchanges when I picked up Sarah. What could be so urgent? I texted back, "About what?" The response came immediately. "Please, it's important. Luigi's at 7. Luigi's was the Italian place where we'd had our first date 21 years ago. Either she was feeling sentimental, or she was trying to manipulate me. With Melissa, it was usually the latter. "Fine," I replied. I spent the rest of the day trying to focus on work, but my mind kept wandering. The private investigator's report had revealed more than just Devin's connection to Autotech. In the past month, Pierce Financial had taken on a dozen new clients, all of them connected to tech companies that had recently been acquired or gone public. Devin was building a business on insider information, and I was willing to bet Melissa was his source. At 6:30, I showered, changed into clean jeans and a button-down shirt, and drove to Luigi's. The restaurant was busy for a Thursday night, filled with couples sharing wine and conversation. I spotted Melissa immediately. She was sitting at a corner table wearing a black dress I'd never seen before. She looked nervous. "Tom," she said as I sat down, "thank you for coming." "What's this about, Melissa?" She fidgeted with her wine glass. "I made a mistake." "Which one? The affair or the divorce?" She flinched. "Both. Neither. It's complicated." "Seems to be your favorite word lately." The waiter appeared and I ordered a beer. When he left, Melissa leaned forward, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I know you hate me right now," she said, "and I deserve that. But I need you to listen to me." "I'm listening." "Devin, he's not who I thought he was." "Shocking." "Tom, please. This is hard enough." She took a shaky breath. "He's been using me. For information about your business, about our finances. I thought he cared about me, but he was using me to make money." I kept my expression neutral, but inside, I was celebrating. She was admitting it, actually admitting it. "What kind of information?" "Everything. Your client list, your revenue, your investments." She looked down at her hands. "Including Autotech." "Ah." He knew about the acquisition before it was announced. He used that information to advise his other clients, to make trades. "Tom, I think what we did was illegal." "We?" "I helped him. I gave him the information. I didn't know what he was planning, but that doesn't matter, does it?" The waiter brought my beer. I took a long sip, thinking. Melissa was scared, really scared, which meant Devin had either dumped her or she'd figured out she was in serious legal trouble. Maybe both. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "I want to call off the divorce." There it was, the real reason for this meeting. "I want us to work this out," she continued, "to go back to the way things were. I know I hurt you, But we can fix this. We can be a family again. I studied her face, looking for any sign of genuine remorse. What I saw instead was calculation. She was scared and desperate, and she thought I was her way out. What about Devon? It's over. It's been over for weeks. Since when? Since I realized what he was doing. Tom, he never loved me. He was just using me to get information. When I confronted him about it, he said some terrible things. Such as? She looked away. He said I was naive if I thought he'd leave his lifestyle for a middle-aged housewife from Southie. That had to hurt. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of sympathy for her, a very small flicker. So now you want to come home. I want to try, if you'll have me. I finished my beer, taking my time. Melissa watched me anxiously, probably trying to read my expression. Good luck with that. I'd been practicing my poker face for a month. I need time to think, I said finally. How much time? I don't know. A few days, a week maybe. She nodded eagerly. Of course. Take all the time you need. But Tom, can we keep this between us for now? I don't want Sarah to get her hopes up if you decide you can't forgive me. Sure. I stood to leave, then paused. Melissa? One question. How much does Devon know about the Autotech money? She went very still. What do you mean? I mean, did you tell him how much I made on the acquisition? Yes, I told him. Everything? Yes. I nodded. Thanks for being honest. I left her sitting there and walked out into the cool October evening. In my truck, I pulled out my phone and called Bill Morrison. Bill, it's Tom. I need you to do something for me. What's that? Set up a wire transfer. I want to move the Autotech money into an offshore account. Tonight. Tom, that's legal, as long as I report it properly, which I will. But I want it done before morning. There was a pause. What's going on? Insurance, I said. I'll explain tomorrow. The next morning I called Melissa and told her I was willing to try reconciliation, but I wanted to take it slow. She was so relieved she actually cried on the phone. We agreed to have dinner that weekend to discuss the details. What I didn't tell her was that I'd spent the morning wiring money to accounts in 3 different countries. By the time she and Devon realized what I'd done, the Autotech windfall would be safely out of their reach. I also didn't tell her about the recording device I'd worn to Luigi's, or that everything she'd said was now documented and backed up in multiple locations. Melissa thought she was playing me. She had no idea that I'd been 3 moves ahead since the day she served me those papers. But she was about to find out. I spent Saturday morning at Joey's gym, working the heavy bag until my knuckles were raw and my shirt was soaked with sweat. The physical exertion helped clear my head, but it couldn't quiet the anger that had been building for weeks. You're gonna hurt yourself, Joey said, watching me throw combinations with more fury than technique. Good. I landed a particularly vicious hook that sent the bag swinging. This, about tonight? Tonight was my dinner with Melissa. Our reconciliation dinner, where she would no doubt try to convince me that we could put the past behind us and start fresh. What she didn't know was that I'd been busy making sure the past would catch up with her in a very permanent way. Partly. Joey handed me a towel. You want some advice? Not particularly. I'm going to give it anyway. Whatever you're planning, make sure you can live with it afterward. I wiped my face, thinking about that. Could I live with destroying my wife's life? A month ago, the answer would have been no. Now, after everything I'd learned about her and Devon, I wasn't so sure. She made her choice, Joey. Yeah, she did. Question is, what choice are you going to make? That evening, I picked Melissa up at the apartment she'd been renting since she moved out. She looked beautiful, hair styled, makeup perfect, wearing the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago. She was trying to remind me of better times, of the woman I'd fallen in love with. It might have worked, if I didn't know what I knew. "You look nice," I said as she got in the truck. "Thank you. So do you." I'd chosen the restaurant carefully, Chez Laurent, an upscale French place downtown where Melissa liked to take her clients. The kind of place where conversations were conducted in hushed tones and privacy was guaranteed. Perfect for what I had planned. We made small talk during the drive, both of us dancing around the real reason we were there. She asked about the garage. I asked about her job. She mentioned that Sarah seemed happier lately, I agreed. Normal conversation between two people who'd once shared everything and now barely knew each other. The restaurant was dimly lit, all white tablecloths and flickering candles. We were seated at a corner table just private enough for intimate conversation. Melissa ordered wine. I stuck with water. I needed to stay sharp for what was coming. "Tom," she said after the waiter left, "I want you to know how grateful I am that you're willing to try this." "Are you?" "Of course. I know I don't deserve another chance, but that's not what I mean." I leaned forward, my voice low. "Are you grateful, or are you desperate?" She blinked. "I don't understand." "Sure you do. You and Devin got in over your heads with the insider trading scheme. Now the SEC is sniffing around, and you need a way out. What better way than to reconcile with your husband and claim you were an innocent victim?" The color drained from her face. "Tom, I don't know what you're talking about." "Really? Then you won't mind if I call my friend at the Boston Globe. I'm sure he'd be interested in a story about a local PR executive and her boyfriend using insider information to manipulate stock prices." "You're bluffing." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a contact. "Jim Hartley, business reporter. We went to high school together. Want me to call him?" "Stop." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Or maybe I should call the SEC directly. I'm sure they'd love to hear the recording I made of our conversation at Luigi's." She went very still. "You recorded me?" "Every word. Your confession about giving Devin information about my business, about auto tech, about the illegal trades, all of it. That's not... I never said it was illegal." "Didn't you?" I pulled out a small digital recorder and placed it on the table between us. "Should we listen?" The waiter appeared with our appetizers, oblivious to the drama playing out at our table. Melissa waited until he left before speaking again. "What do you want?" "The truth. All of it." She looked around the restaurant, as if checking for escape routes. When she looked back at me, the mask had finally slipped completely. The woman sitting across from me wasn't the apologetic wife seeking forgiveness. She was a cornered animal, calculating her options. "Fine," she said. "You want the truth? Devin and I have been planning this for months. The affair was real, but it was also business. He needed inside information. I needed a way out of this marriage. So you used me. We used each other. You got your precious garage. I got my freedom. It was supposed to be clean, a simple divorce, no hard feelings. But then auto tech happened? Yes. Suddenly you were worth almost $1 million and everything changed. Devin wanted his cut. Devin wanted it all." Her voice was bitter now. "He said we could contest the divorce, claim I was entitled to half of everything. But that would have taken years, and the SEC investigation was getting closer. So you decided to come back to me. I decided to cut my losses. Devin was getting reckless, making trades that were too obvious. It was only a matter of time before someone connected the dots." I sat back, amazed by her coldness. This was the woman I'd loved for 20 years, the mother of my daughter, and she'd been planning to destroy me from the beginning. "There's just one problem with your plan," I said. "What's that?" "The money's gone." She laughed. "Nice try. I know you, Tom. You're not smart enough to hide that much money." "You're right, I'm not smart enough. But my accountant is, and my lawyer, and the financial advisor I hired last week." I smiled. "The Autotech money is currently sitting in accounts in Switzerland, the Cayman Islands, and Singapore. All perfectly legal, all properly reported to the IRS, and all completely out of your reach. The blood drained from her face. You can't do that. Already did. As of this morning, my net worth in the United States is exactly $12,000 and change. Not really worth fighting over in divorce court. I'll sue you. I'll claim you hid assets. With what money? And what evidence? I moved the money after you served me divorce papers, using funds from an investment you told me not to make. My lawyer says it's completely legal. She was shaking now, whether from rage or fear, I couldn't tell. Tom, please, we can work something out. Can we? Because I'm pretty sure Devin is planning to throw you under the bus as soon as the SEC comes knocking. Insider trading carries a maximum sentence of 20 years in federal prison. How much of that do you think he's willing to serve to protect you? He wouldn't. Wouldn't he? You said it yourself, he never loved you. You were just a source of information. Now that the information has dried up and the heat is on, what use are you to him? She stared at me across the table, and for the first time since this whole mess started, I saw real fear in her eyes. What do you want? She asked again. I want you to disappear. What? I want you to withdraw the reconciliation request, finalize the divorce, and leave Boston. Tonight. I can't do that. Sarah knows what you did. She's the one who showed me the text messages, remember? She's 16, old enough to choose which parent she wants to live with. Guess which one she picked? Melissa's composure finally cracked completely. Tears streamed down her face, ruining her carefully applied makeup. Tom, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. Yes, you did. You just never meant to get caught. I stood up and dropped a $100 bill on the table. The divorce papers are in your apartment. Sign them and leave them with your lawyer. You have 24 hours. And if I don't? Then I call the SEC, the Boston Globe, and anyone else who might be interested in your story. Your choice. I walked out of the restaurant and left her there, crying into her wine. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck for a few minutes, letting the adrenaline wear off. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. How did it go? I texted back. Better than expected. See you at home. As I drove through the city, I thought about Joey's question. Could I live with what I'd done? Melissa had betrayed me, used me, planned to destroy me. But she was still Sarah's mother, still the woman I'd once loved. Then I remembered the coldness in her voice when she'd admitted the affair was just business, the calculating way she'd tried to manipulate me even tonight. Some betrayals were too deep to forgive. By the time I got home, I had my answer. I could live with it just fine. The call came at 6 a.m, 3 days after my dinner with Melissa. I was in the kitchen making coffee when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. Tom Halley? Speaking. This is Agent Sarah Chen with the Securities and Exchange Commission. I'd like to ask you some questions about your relationship with Devin Pierce and Pierce Financial Solutions. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. I'm sorry, who? Devin Pierce. Our records show that you were an investor in Autotech Solutions, which was recently acquired. Mr. Pierce provided financial advice to several Autotech investors prior to the acquisition announcement. I've never heard of Devin Pierce. There was a pause. Mr. Halley, we have evidence that suggests otherwise. Phone records show multiple calls between your wife's cell phone and Mr. Pierce's office. We also have financial records indicating that information about Autotech may have been shared inappropriately. Agent Chen, I think you need to speak with my ex-wife. We're currently in the middle of divorce proceedings. Ex-wife? Soon to be. Melissa Halley. She's the one you want to talk to, not me. Another pause. Mr. Halley, would you be willing to come in for an interview? Voluntarily, of course. Do I need a lawyer? That's up to you. But we're not considering you a target of this investigation. We believe you may have been a victim. 2 hours later, I was sitting in a conference room in the SEC's Boston office with Bill Morrison beside me and Agent Chen across the table. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with short black hair and the kind of intense focus that made me glad I was on the right side of this conversation. "Mr. Halley," she began, "how long have you been married to Melissa Halley?" 19 years, but we're getting divorced." "When did the divorce proceedings begin?" "About 6 weeks ago." "And when did you first learn about your wife's relationship with Devin Pierce?" I looked at Bill, who nodded. "The day she served me with papers. I overheard a phone conversation." Agent Chen made notes as I told the story, the phone call, the divorce papers, the revelation about the affair. I left out the part about the recording and my offshore accounts. No need to complicate things. "Did you know that Mr. Pierce was using information from your wife to advise other clients?" "Not until recently. My lawyer hired a private investigator." "What did the investigator find?" Bill slid a folder across the table. "Pierce Financial Solutions was incorporated 8 months ago. The company's client list includes several individuals who made profitable trades based on information about pending acquisitions and IPOs. Information that wasn't publicly available at the time." Agent Chen reviewed the documents. "This is very helpful. Mr. Halley, are you aware that your wife may have provided Mr. Pierce with details about your autotech investment?" "She admitted it to me last week." "She admitted it?" "We had dinner. She was trying to reconcile. During the conversation, she confessed to giving Pierce information about my business and investments." Agent Chen leaned forward. "Did you record this conversation?" Bill touched my arm, a warning. "We'd discussed this." "No," I said. "Massachusetts is a two-party consent state. Any recording would be illegal." "Of course." Agent Chen made more notes. "Mr. Halley, we're going to need to examine your financial records related to the autotech investment." "No problem. We may also need to interview your daughter if she had any knowledge of her mother's activities." "Sarah's 16. She knew about the affair, but I don't think she understood the financial implications." "We'll be gentle." The interview lasted another hour. Agent Chen asked about my business, my relationship with Melissa, my knowledge of her work. I answered everything honestly, portraying myself as the betrayed husband who'd been kept in the dark about his wife's activities, which, until recently, had been true. As we were leaving, Agent Chen handed me her card. "Mr. Halley, if your wife contacts you, please let us know immediately. She and Mr. Pierce are persons of interest in an ongoing investigation." "Of course." In the parking lot, Bill grabbed my arm. "Tom, there's something you should know. Melissa's lawyer called this morning. She wants to expedite the divorce." "Really?" "She's agreed to all your terms. No alimony, no property settlement, joint custody of Sarah with you as primary guardian. She wants it finalized this week." I smiled. Fear is a wonderful motivator. "There's something else. The lawyer says Melissa is leaving Boston. Some kind of family emergency in California." California. Far enough away to avoid the SEC investigation, at least temporarily, but not far enough to avoid federal charges if they decided to prosecute. That evening, Sarah and I had dinner at home. Pizza and beer for me, pizza and Coke for her. She'd been quiet since the divorce proceedings started, caught between loyalty to her mother and disgust at what Melissa had done. "Dad," she said finally, "Mom called me today." "What did she say?" "She's moving to California. She said she got a job offer she couldn't refuse." "How do you feel about that?" Sarah shrugged. "Relieved, I guess. Is that terrible?" "No, sweetheart. It's honest. She asked me to come with her." My heart stopped. "And?" I told her no. My life is here. My friends, my school, my dad. She looked at me seriously. "You are my dad, right? Like, you're not going anywhere?" "I'm not going anywhere." "Good, because I've had enough changes for 1 year." 2 days later, the divorce was final. Melissa signed the papers without appearing in court, her lawyer handling everything. I was officially a single man again, with full custody of Sarah and complete control of my finances. That same day, the Boston Globe ran a front-page story about an SEC investigation into insider trading at several Boston-area financial firms. Devin Pierce was named as a person of interest, along with several unnamed co-conspirators. Melissa's name wasn't mentioned, but I knew it was only a matter of time. I was cleaning up after dinner when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Melissa's number. "Hello, Melissa." "Tom." Her voice was strained, desperate. "I need your help." "Do you?" "The FBI raided Devin's office today. They arrested him." "I heard." "Tom, they're going to come after me next. You know they are." "Probably. I need money. To hire a lawyer. To disappear. You have to help me." I walked out onto my back porch, looking up at the stars. Why would I do that? Because I'm Sarah's mother. Because we were married for 19 years. Because you're a good man. I was a good man. You cured me of that. Tom, please, I'm begging you. The way I begged you not to leave? The way I begged you to work on our marriage instead of running off with your boyfriend? Silence. Here's what's going to happen, Melissa. You're going to face the consequences of your choices. You're going to cooperate with the FBI investigation, plead guilty to whatever charges they bring, and serve your time. And maybe, if you're very lucky, Sarah will still want to have a relationship with you when you get out. I can't go to prison. You should have thought of that before you decided to commit federal crimes. Tom, I hung up. An hour later, Sarah came downstairs. Was that Mom? Yeah. What did she want? Money. Sarah snorted. Of course she did. What did you tell her? No. Good. Sarah sat down beside me on the porch swing. Dad, can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy? I thought about that. Was I happy? My wife had betrayed me, my marriage was over, and I was facing single parenthood. But I was also free from a relationship that had been slowly poisoning me for years. I had my daughter, my business, and enough money to never worry about the future again. Yeah, I said finally. I think I am. Me too. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars and listening to the distant sound of traffic. Somewhere out there, Melissa was probably packing her bags and preparing to run. Devin was sitting in a federal holding cell, wondering how his perfect plan had fallen apart, and I was exactly where I belonged. 3 months later, I got a call from Agent Chen. Devin Pierce had pleaded guilty to securities fraud and conspiracy charges. He was facing 15 years in federal prison. Melissa had been arrested in Los Angeles and extradited back to Boston. She was cooperating with the investigation in exchange for a reduced sentence. How reduced? I asked. 18 months, plus restitution and probation. And Devin. He's not as lucky. Turns out this wasn't his first offense. He ran a similar scheme in Chicago 5 years ago. After I hung up, I walked out to my garage and looked around at the business I'd built from nothing. Cars in various stages of repair. Tools organized exactly the way I like them. The smell of motor oil and possibility. Sarah appeared in the doorway, wearing her field hockey uniform. Dad, can you drive me to practice? Of course. As we drove through the streets of South Boston, past the house where I'd grown up, past Joey's gym, past all the familiar landmarks of my life, I realized something important. I'd won. Not because I'd destroyed Melissa and Devin, though I had. Not because I'd kept the money, though I had that too. I'd won because I'd refused to let their betrayal destroy me. I'd fought back, protected my daughter, and built something better from the ashes of my marriage. Dad, Sarah said as we pulled up to the school, I'm proud of you. For what? For not letting them win. She got out of the truck and jogged toward the field, her equipment bag bouncing against her hip. I watched her go, this amazing young woman who'd chosen to stand by me when everything fell apart. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Tom, it's Melissa. I'm sorry for everything. I hope someday you can forgive me. I deleted the message without responding. Some apologies come too late, some betrayals cut too deep, and sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to let the people who hurt you matter anymore. I drove home to my empty house, my successful business, and my bright future, leaving the past exactly where it belonged, behind me.